What is going on, guys? I'm BobZeBattleDroid, and by the title of the video, you probably have realized by now that this is a Pokemon trading card game match. But instead of being online, which most of the trading card game matches on YouTube are online, this will be an actual match that I played against one of my friends. And I had watched a couple of videos similar to this on Skullshorter's TCG. I'll put his channel link in the description below, but if you are watching my channel, you've probably watched his channel before, just because it's so much bigger than mine, incredibly larger. And he had said in one of his, I think it might have been the first video in that series that he had done, that a lot of people don't put these types of videos on YouTube. There's not a huge amount of actual live matches. Now there is a lot of people that do like on the bubble. You see a lot of on the bubble matches, which are tournament matches, but this is more of a casual play. And as you can see, those are magic sleeves that my opponent has. He is on the left, and those sleeves, yes, they are magic sleeves, and in a normal situation those would not be tournament legal, but because it's casual play, he can play with those. I don't really care, so it's not a big deal. And I am playing Gengar Trevenant, or Gengar Wailord, so it's a modification of the deck list. And by the time the Gengar Trevenant deck list is out, this video will be out after it, so that video will already be out by the time this is released. And my opponent is playing Night March. So in a normal situation like this, Gengar would have the advantage, just because your main attacker would be Gengar switching into Trevenant or Wailord in this deck. So Night March might be able to knock out that switcher, but my main attacker will be the same, and it doesn't take very much to knock out a Night March Pokemon. So we'll just get shuffled up here, get our deck shuffled up, and we'll see what happens. Just kind of shuffling here. Yeah, so I was saying, in a normal situation, Night March would have a huge advantage, so that is, or sorry, Gengar would have a huge advantage, so that is a good thing for me. And it looks like we will... Oh. What's going on here? Oh, we're going to roll to see. And I can't tell by that dice roll. I just got off the camera. I think I won the flip, though, or the dice roll, and so I decide to go first. So we'll draw our cards here. And I do not have a basic Pokemon. Yep, I do not have a basic Pokemon in my hand, so I'll mulligan and my opponent will be able to draw a card. Looks like he has a basic. Looks like a Mew. And that hand wasn't that good. I mean, it didn't really have anything that great in that hand. I did have a Skyla, but it wasn't really that big right now. I mean, I don't believe I had an Ultra Ball in my hand either, so that's a big deal. If you can Ultra Ball for something, then it's Ultra Ball for a Wailord or something else. But the main strategy of my deck is to get Gengar out, like a normal Gengar deck, variant deck, and switch into Wailord. And I will have a Floatstone attached to Wailord, and because Wailord has 250 HP, there's only a few Pokemon that can knock it out with one attack. That is the White Kyurem, I believe, that, well, maybe it was Now, Black Hyrum has the attack that does 200 damage. That's not even enough to knock out that Pokemon. But maybe there was a Charizard card, I believe, that had enough to knock it out. And in Roaring Skies, there's a possibility. But sorry, I'm just getting a little brain fart trying to forget what Pokemon could knock this out. But I will draw a basic Pokemon in my new hand. And yes, those are mulligans. Or, yes, I did get a mulligan, so my opponent will get to draw a card. And I am using proxies, so I'll have to deal with it for this match. Hopefully I can get some actual physical cards. I'm working on that. Again, this was just a test deck, so I'm just trying to see how this deck works out. So hopefully it works out for the better. And I also do play Garbodor because locking ability is really good. And I'm expecting Shaman to be a really big deal after Roaring Skies is already out now. But I'm expecting Shaman to be quite a big deal. So decks will stop relying on cards like Professor Juniper or N, supporter cards, and they'll just start using a lot of Shamans. So the popularity of Executor, which locks out supporter cards with an attack, the popularity of that deck is probably going to go down, which is a good thing for my deck because Wailord is weak to grass, so Executor would be able to do a little bit more than it's able to do. But if there's any deck that I would not be able to do very good against, it would probably be Genesect, just because, I mean, you would have to have a G booster to knock out a Wailord. It's just kind of surprising. Like, even if Genesect attacked once normally without the G booster, it wouldn't even be a one-hit knockout, even with the weakness. So, Wailord is just a beast, literally speaking. And you just attach a Float Stone to it, he gets free retreat. That's a one downfall of Wailord. Not a very good retreat cost there of 4. So, not a very good retreat cost there, but in my deck I also play some Headringers. As you see, there's one on Mew. And red card just for disruption. And my opponent gets 2 Battle Compressors. That is a big deal. But a very common thing to see in a Night March deck. Very annoying thing to see. That's the one thing about Night March is incredibly annoying, that if lucky, if a Night March deck does go second, you get 2 Battle Compressors or 3 Battle Compressors, it's possible, to do 120 damage, and it's fairly common. Not in most situations, but it's not a shock to see that happen. And if my opponent can find a way to switch into Pumpkaboo, find a Dimension Valley, and get a double colorless energy, well, he would be able to do 120 damage on that Gengar. If he can find another Battle Compressor, now he would be able to knock out that Gengar. And he does find a Dimension Valley, so now all he needs is some kind of switch card, and he will play an N. So basically, right now, that Mew is pretty much unusable with the Headringer. I mean, it is usable, but you would have to find a double colorless energy with the Dimension Valley. But if the Dimension Valley gets out of play again, well, then my opponent is in trouble with that Mew, because now Mew will have to have 3 energies attached to it to use Night March. So with the Dimension Valley, it's not a big deal. But as soon as I get the Garbodor out, now Mew can't even use another attack on the field. The only attack Mew would be able to use would be Replace, which really doesn't do much in a Night March deck. And as you can see, there is one card with just a blank white piece of paper. That is a red card. I just kind of got a little lazy with cutting out all of the proxies and dealing with that. So I just took a little piece of paper. So that is a red card if that comes up in another video. Hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully I do get an actual red card by that time. But for right now, that is a red card for anyone who was wondering. And for my opponent, he is not in a very good situation right now. Because he would have to switch, get into the Pumpkaboo. So if he can't find a way to get into that Pumpkaboo, if I can find a double colorless energy, I already have 2 prizes. But now with that extra Ultra Ball, he is able to hit for quite a amount of damage. So if luck comes his way, he will be able to get some damage. So, believe he will. Oh, he will get the switch card, so he will be able to get out of that. And he'll bench a Joltik, play a Bicycle. All he needs is the double colorless now, and he'll be able to hit for 140. And he'll just laser, so doesn't appear that he does have a double colorless energy in his hand, and he will just laser my Gengar and hope that Gengar stays asleep for at least a turn. And I'll roll here, and it looks like luck has somewhat gone his way. I will have to go a turn without Gengar. Oh, and my opponent realizes that Gengar didn't have a poison counter on it, so making sure that was on there. So I do evolve into the Garbodor, so now all I need is a Float Stone or some kind of tool, and I'll make Mew pretty much worthless now. And I'll just play a red card there, which my opponent was probably... Oh, he did have a Juniper, so I believe he did have a Juniper. So, I mean, it wasn't somewhat disruption, although his hand wasn't amazing. For anyone who doesn't know what red card does, it has, when you play it, it's an item card. You have your opponent shuffle their current hand into their deck and draw just a fresh new 4 cards. Doesn't change like N would. It's just 4 cards every time. So it can be quite annoying if your opponent has a very large hand. Right now my hand isn't all that good. Max Potion really isn't really much worth right now because Wailord doesn't have any damage on him currently. And I'll just count how many Night Marches he has. My opponent has. I believe he has 7. So hitting for 140 isn't that bad. Considering that that's... Next turn will be his second turn. Not bad at all. And it does look like I will wake up from being asleep. So that's good. But it didn't really matter anyway because that Hypnotoxic Laser did really come back to help my opponent here because Pumpkaboo will be hitting for 140 with Night March. There are 7 Night Marches in this card pile. That will be a knockout when the poison comes back to my turn. So already I will be down 2 prize cards. But that isn't that surprising. Night March is an extremely fast-going deck. And it's not very surprising to see a Night March deck take 2 prizes at least on the second or third turn. And my opponent just plays an N. And we'll just draw our new hands. Looks like my hand was decent. Looks like I've got a Bicycle, a Floatstone, a Wailord, Muscle Band, another Gengar, which isn't really that necessary because I already have another one on the bench and ready to go. But my opponent's hand was very good. He did get a Juniper. He got a Energy. So if he attaches energy to Joltik, if Dimension Valley stays in play, Joltik will be able to do 140 damage for 1 energy. And my opponent will just pass. Well, he will attack, and Gengar will be knocked out with poison in between turns. And that is one big thing that Night March does incredibly well. It's just doing huge damage outputs, but that one downfall of Gengar or Night March is that a lot of the times the deck will get ahead of itself, and it's hard to make a comeback if Night March gets behind. Looks like we'll just see another N here. An extremely high amount of N's being used in this game. So I do have that Floatstone attached to Garbodor, so our Mew is pretty much worthless. If I can find a Lysander, I can match this game back up with 4 prizes to 4 prizes. So if I do get a Lysander, that will be good. Although I'll have to wait another turn to play that Lysander because I just end. And I'm only allowed to use 1 supporter a turn. So unfortunately, I will have to wait another turn if I do find a Lysander. But I wouldn't be surprised if my opponent plays another N and I have to shuffle it back in. But it does not look like I got a Lysander, but I did get something a lot more important, a double colorless energy, and I will attach that to Gengar. And now I will be able to take my first prize of the game, and I will do just that. Knock out that Pumpkaboo. And so now, even if my opponent can get Joltik, oh, that's interesting. He decides to put in the Mew instead of the Joltik. If he does attach energy to Joltik, then he would be able to do a decent amount of damage on Wailord, but still not enough to knock it out. I don't really understand why Mew was put up in that situation. Unless he doesn't have a energy to attach to Joltik. Oh, it must have been a misplay because he decides to just switch back into the Joltik. And so my opponent just did count his Night Marchers. I counted 8, I believe. So hitting for 160 or 180. The Pumpkaboo on top that I knocked out. Yeah, I believe it's 180 now. And he will Battle Compressor. Search his deck for cards to discard. And it doesn't look like he has any Night Marchers left. There is one Joltik that is stuck in the prize card, so that is big thing. If I can knock out this Joltik, now he's pretty much stuck if he can't find a way to knock out another one of my Pokemon. I can just keep him from having any Pokemon at all to play, because it doesn't look like he had another Pokemon in his deck left. Which doesn't even look like I will be taking all of my prize cards this game. But who knows, if he can pull out some miraculous way to get some easy prizes here. I'll attach a Muscle Band to Joltik, so now he'll be hitting 200. And he's going to play an N, which I don't believe he has. I don't know if he has a Lysander in the discard pile right now, but I believe a Versus Seeker for a Lysander might have been more important. Although, if he didn't have an energy, then he wouldn't have been able to attack a Gengar. Although, stalling is more important right now than getting an energy, because currently still he will not be able to knock out that Wailord in one turn, which is completely crazy, considering that he has 9 Night Marchers in the discard pile and a Muscle Band attached to Joltik. So he will be able to do 200 damage if he does find an energy from this N here. My hand wasn't all that great. I don't really need much of anything at the moment right now. Bunch of supporters in my hand, and looks like I'll just laser and hope that Wailord will go asleep, and he does through my turn. He will fall asleep first, and we'll see if it comes back through my turn here. And no, it does not. So that was probably one of the last hopes for my opponent there. If he could have kept Wailord asleep, then he could have had more time to find another energy of some sort. And although he does have an energy attached to Pumpkaboo, although he will need to find another one because Pumpkaboo's Night March costs 3 energy, Dimension Valley takes one of those colorless energies away. Makes it a little bit easier to attack with Pumpkaboo. Looks like I'll just search for a Max Potion. Looks like I'm anticipating that my opponent does have a energy in his hand, or will find some energy and attach it to Pumpkaboo and find a way to get some damage on Wailord. But still, it looks like he will be 10 damage away when I pass here from knocking out that Wailord. When I pass here, the poison will go to 20. Or actually, no, I'm going to retreat into Wailord. So that will remove the poison. So that's a big thing. And I'll knock out the Joltik. And so now he has, I believe, all of his Night Marchers that are not currently in his deck. All of his Night Marchers are in the discard pile, except for that one Pumpkaboo on the bench now in the active slot, and the one Joltik in the prize cards. And he'll just Juniper his hand away, hoping for some kind of energy card. But still, he will only be able to hit for 200 with the Pumpkaboo. And he'll get a Mystery Energy, attach it to Pumpkaboo. So now Pumpkaboo does have free retreat, although it's not really necessary. He'll attach a Life Dew to Pumpkaboo. Oh wow, he did get a lot of energy though. A crazy amount. And looks like he'll just attack here, I believe. Well, Life Dew does slightly make the game a little bit better for him, although he would have to find a way to knock out Wailord, which will not be really that viable in this situation. If he would have taken that Joltik when he had pulled out the prize cards when he knocked out the first Gengar, then the game might have looked a little bit different. Although even with that, still, he would still be a little damage short. And there goes that max potion that I had gotten from the Skyla. I'll drop that down and take all of the damage off of Wailord. So that is a crazy amount of damage without any of the takebacks of the normal card, which Max Potion states that you have to discard any energy attached to the Pokemon, but because Wailord doesn't have any energy attached to it, just move all the damage off of Wailord. So the amount of damage that I will be able to heal with Wailord overall in general is crazy. And in most situations, around just as much as a deck that plays Rough Seas or a Fairy deck. And it looks like I'll just knock out that Pumpkaboo right there. Will not take a prize with the Life Dew, but at this point, it's not that important because Mew is his last Pokemon that he can play. So all I have to do now is knock out that Mew with the Gengar, and Mew is weak to Psychic Pokemon, so just one attack of Dark Corridor will knock out Mew. And it looks like my opponent's just going to be a nice sport and play till the end, not give up. Although he probably does know that it is the end. And wow, his deck is incredibly tiny. That's another downfall of Night March. Night March does burn through their deck incredibly fast, although it does make a lot of sense as pretty much the hope of Night March and the strategy is to get as many Night Marchers as you can from the deck to the discard pile. So the deck gets thinned incredibly quickly. So pretty much every single Night March deck does run a Lysander trump card because of that fact. Although running a trump card doesn't really hurt the deck as much as most people would think, because the deck runs so quickly. And my opponent will roll heads for roller skates. He rolled again. I don't know why that happened. I think it was just... Actually, yeah, I do know that happened. My opponent, I think he said that it wasn't a fair roll or something like that. So I said whatever. And I'll just search his deck for some stuff to compress away with Battle Compressor. If he does get a Lysander trump card, he could try to play the stall game, although that won't really work because his deck will run a lot quicker before mine ever will. And it looks like my opponent will just pass here, I believe. Yep, my opponent will just pass, and I will draw my card. And I'll just switch into Gengar and take the game. It doesn't appear that I have realized that It's not. Yeah, it doesn't appear that I realized that I could just take the game right now. Oh, looks like it. Just realized it. So I'll switch into Gengar and knock out that Mew, and I will win the game instead of taking all of my prize cards because my opponent does not have any more Pokemon left to play on the field or overall in his deck. So anyway, guys, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to comment down below in the comment section. Make sure that you do that. Tell me if you enjoyed this video. Besides that, anyway, thanks for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye.